Hello everyone, welcome to PRP Coding YouTube channel. I am Praveen Raveendran Pillai. Today I am going to discuss about the MongoDB provider for EntityFramework Core. In this session, I shall explain how to connect an ASP.NET 7 Web API with MongoDB using EntityFramework Core. So let's start. I have created an ASP.NET 7 Web API project and it is opened in my VS Code editor. In the solution, you can see a models folder with a product class with ID, name, description, and price as properties. MongoDB provider for EntityFramework Core is now available in public preview. To use this in our project, we need to install a NuGet package named mongodb.entityframework core. At the time of recording this video, this NuGet package is in pre-release mode. To install this package, right-click on the project, open in integrated terminal, and run the command .NET add package mongodb.entityframework core. Make sure that you have included the pre-release flag and click enter. Here you can see that the NuGet packages got installed, and let me click on this project, and MongoDB.entityFramework Core with version 7.0.0 preview 1 is installed in this project. The next step is to create a DB context class. The DB context class is an integral part of the entity framework. An instance of DB context represents a session with the database which can be used to query and save instances of entities to a database. So let me create a folder named context. And inside the context folder, let me create a class named MongoDB context. Okay. Now this MongoDB context class needs to be inherited from the DB context class of Microsoft.entityFramework Core. For the DB context class to be able to do any useful work, it needs an instance of the DB context options class. So let me create a constructor with DB context options as parameter. DB context options of MongoDB context and name it as options and pass it to the DB context constructor. Now, the DB context options instance carries configuration information such as connection string, database providers, and so on. The DB context class includes a generic DB set property for each entity in the model. In our case, we have a product model. We will use the DB set properties to query and save instances of the product class. So let me create a DB set property. Let me say like public DB set product and name it as products get set. Yeah. Now let me close this terminal window. In MongoDB, there is no table concept. Everything is a collection. We need to explicitly map the entities with collections in MongoDB. This can be achieved by overriding the onModelCreating virtual method of the base DB context class. So let me override the onModelCreating method. So it will create a model builder. So here I can say model builder dot entity, set the entity as product dot to collection, and I will give a collection name as products. So the MongoDB context class is implemented. Now we need to register this MongoDB context in the services collection. For that, let me open the program.cs file, and here we need to add builder.services.add DB context and specify the DB context as MongoDB context. I'll pass the options as a lambda expression. So options dot, I'm going to use the use MongoDB function because here I am using the MongoDB provider. Now the use MongoDB function is taking two parameters, iMongo client and a database name. And it has got one more overload. It is taking a connection string and a database name. So I'm going to use this second overload. So here we need to pass a connection string and a database name. To pass the connection string, make sure that your MongoDB is running. In my case, I have installed MongoDB in my machine and it is already running. To test that, let me open the MongoDB Compass client. And here you can see that the connection string is MongoDB localhost port number 27017. So let me try to connect. And here you can see that it is successfully connected and all the default database are shown here. Okay. So now let me switch back to Visual Studio Code. And as a first parameter, let me pass the connection string. So this is the connection string. This is the port number at which my MongoDB is running. And the second parameter is I need to pass a database name. So let me name it as productsDB. Okay, so fix the errors. Yes. So now we have successfully registered the MongoDB context to the services collection. Now the next step is to create the API endpoints for the read and write operations. Before doing that, I would like to make a change in the product entity. Let me modify the data type of ID to object ID. MongoDB uses object IDs as the default value of ID field of each document, which is generated during the creation of any document. Object ID is treated as the primary key within any MongoDB collection. It is a unique identifier for each document. Now let me open the program.cs file and add the code for the create and read API endpoints. So let me replace this line of code with this. Here you can see this is the create endpoint and this is the read endpoint. For this demo, I'm using the ASP.NET 7 minimal API approach. The create endpoint is a post method and it accepts two parameters. As a first parameter, I have injected the MongoDB context to perform the DB operations. The second parameter is used to bind the request body parameters. Here you can see that I have added the product entity to the DB set, and the context.savechangesAsync method will make sure that the record is inserted into the MongoDB database. The read endpoint is a get method and it accepts one parameter MongoDB context. The context.products.toListAsync will go and fetch all the records from the MongoDB database. Now let me run this application and test these endpoints via Postman. So let me run the application. The application is building and it is running. And here you can see that the application is running in port number 5000. I have installed the Postman extension for VS Code. So let me click on this icon. And here you can see that I have created a Postman collection named efcore-mongo-api. So if I expand this, you can see there are two endpoints, get all products and create product. Now let me click on this create product endpoint. It's loading the request, and here you can see that the URL is http localhost 5000/products. It's a post method, and let me click on this body. And if I expand this, here you can see that I have created a request body with name as iPhone 15 Pro, description is Apple product, and price is 1,59,000.25. Okay, so now let me click on the send request. Here you can see that the status is 200. Now let me open the MongoDB Compass and refresh this page. Here you can see that it has created a products DB, and if I expand, it has created a collection named products, and our data is successfully inserted into MongoDB database. Now let me insert one more product item. So let me switch back to Visual Studio Code and let's make it as iPhone 15 Pro Max and give the price as 2,59,000.25, and let me click on this send. Here you can see the status is 200. Let me switch back to MongoDB Compass And let me reload this page. And here you can see that the Apple product iPhone 15 Pro Max is inserted this time, and the price is 2,59,000.25. Now let me go and test the get all products endpoint. So let me switch back to the Visual Studio Code and click on the get all products endpoint. And here you can see it is HTTP localhost 5000/products, and it is a get method. Now let me click on the send button. And here you can see that the iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max product is displayed. Now, if you look at the API response, the ID shown over here and the ID shown in the MongoDB Compass is different. In MongoDB Compass, it's an object ID, but in the API response, it is a full-blown object with some properties. The EntityFramework Core for MongoDB has converted the actual object ID into this format. It is better to show this ID inside the object ID as an API response. For that, we need to modify the get all products request endpoint. So let me switch back to VS Code and stop this server first. Okay, let me click on the program.cs file and let's modify this read endpoint. So let me add the code. So here, what I have done is I have created a new modified products collection with the only change in the ID. Here you can see that I have called the toString method. So basically it returns the string representation of the object ID. And instead of this products, let me copy this modified products and put it over here. Now let me run the application and test this endpoint. And switch back to the get all products endpoint and click on this send button. This time you can see that the ID is a string representation of object ID. We have successfully connected MongoDB with an ASP.NET Web API using the new MongoDB.EntityFramework NuGet package. At the time of recording this video, this NuGet package is in preview mode. This preview has a number of limitations at this time. So finally, we reached the end of this session. If you find this video helpful, then please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay tuned for the next updates. Thank you.